Alrighty, so first of all, apologies that this review is relatively late because on Saturday I went to the Minnesota United versus San Jose Earthquakes game, and then on the following week found out that it seems like Minnesota United and the San Jose Earthquakes are playing the reserve team in the MLS Next Pro, so I also went to that, so that's why I didn't do the review of the Sunday game too, but nevertheless, I'll still split the review into two parts. I'll basically do part two a little later tonight, but most likely that video is not going to be uploaded until tomorrow. But in terms of this 14 game action from this weekend's action, well, it's kind of also like a mini Heineken rivalry week because we definitely saw some big rivalry that gone down. We obviously saw, in my opinion, still the best rivalry in MLS in the Cascadia Derby, but also we had some playoff six-pointer that has happened in this, and also some teams that made a big statement in terms of this match week. But we start off with the first match, which is actually the matinee game between NYCFC versus the Vancouver Whitecaps. Because, for those that don't know, there's actually still matinee game that happened on Saturday. It feels like it's weird the fact that matinee game doesn't exist anymore on Saturday because of the Apple TV deal, and that I do think next year they're probably going to have to do something different about this because I've heard a lot of fans have complained about how Apple TV is basically putting too many games on Saturday on a short amount of period. And I get that it basically benefits MLS 360, but also it feels like it's a little bit too much, and I have a feeling probably Apple TV and the way that the scheduling next season is going to be a little different, and we're probably going to see more day games that's going to be happening on Saturday, especially in the beginning of the season where I think there was a lot of criticism the fact that there was just way too many night games in the beginning of the season, especially games in the East Coast that were played during nighttime despite it was freezing cold. It was absolutely insane to see. But in this one, between NYCFC versus Vancouver, it ended in a 1-1 draw, and I would say that, for Vancouver, again, people have wrote this team off coming into this seven-game road trip. It looked like this team was doomed because of the fact that they're just still sitting barely above the red line, and knowing that this team has not done well this season on the road, it looked like a lot of people written off Vanni Sartini team. Well, one thing I will say is that probably you should not write off Vanni Sartini team anymore because, yeah, this Vancouver Whitecaps team, they have been very impressive. And keep in mind, this is the third game in 7 days for a lot of these teams, and that's tough. But it's even tougher the fact that all three of those games in the latter of 7 days have came on the road, and that, yeah, very impressive result here from the Vancouver Whitecaps from NYCFC. But early on, Rodriguez puts it high on the free kick before goal when hits one right to freeze on the free kick. As expected, NYCFC had most of the possession. Vancouver was elected to sit back and counter, and it was kind of expected because we knew that coming into this game, Vancouver is going to sit back. They're going to do their trademark transitional play while NYCFC is going to dominate the possession. Rodriguez would put it wide from close before Jason. Yeah, he want to have this one back because this was an absolute sitter that he missed from 5 yards out. I mean, that's one of those ones where it's harder to miss than actually score. And that, yeah, I think that is definitely one that Jason would want to have back. But the pressure was definitely mounting. Like, the NYCFC was definitely pressing for the opener. Vancouver was just kind of holding on for dear life, trying to ride out this NYCFC story and trying to get to halftime with a 0-0 scoreline. Takuaka had to deny Morales on the volley, and yeah, they do get to halftime 0-0 the Vancouver Whitecaps, but in the second half, NYCFC basically picked up where they left off. Morales would puts it high from long range. I even wrote that, and eventually the pressure was too much for Vancouver to overcome, as in the 55th minute, NYCFC finally got their much deserved opener, as Baccarat would score from Rodriguez to make it 1-0 in favor of NYCFC. So Montserrat Baccarat start to get going now. Two goals in a row after scoring his first career MLS goal in the last game. And that's the thing about strikers. Like, when you finally is able to break the duck, as Baccarat has did in the last game, you're going to build up your confidence and start scoring more. And I have a feeling Montserrat Baccarat, this won't be the last time we're going to see him on the score sheet for NYCFC. Though, that being said, that lead would be short-lived because in the 57th minute, a penalty was given to Vancouver after a Sands brought down goal in the box. Goal, of course, wins the penalty. He takes the penalty and he buries it. So that game ties up at one apiece, and then Gall was looking to try to get a but he heads that one wide, and all of a sudden the momentum was with Vancouver because up to the point when Vancouver conceded that opening goal, it was all NYCFC. Like it looked like NYCFC were going to eventually get that opening goal and they're gonna run away with it. But gotta give credit to Vancouver. They held it in there, and now it seems like the momentum was with them. And that I feel like NYCFC they were still trying to recover after getting sucker punched because you can clearly see that after they conceded the equalizer, I don't think they were expected the fact that that was the situation, and they were kind of on a bit of a back foot and look a little rattled because of it. Though that being said, in the 77th minute, Takaoka did deny Gray, but it goes right to Fernandez, but he only heads it onto the roof of the net. And then Krufe would heads it wide despite having a free header there in the 85th minute. I mean, it was just not the afternoon for NYCFC in terms of their finishing. But they were still trying to press for a late winner. You can clearly see the Whitecaps were hanging on for a vital row point, and they did. As in the end, it ended in a 1-1 draw, and the shots in this one, 16 shots for the 6 that Vancouver has. But here's the problem for NYCFC and the reason why they didn't win. Only 3 of the 16 shots are on target, and just more times than not, whenever I see teams that put up good numbers in the shots category, but they put a relatively weak shots on goal rate ratio, and their shots on goal is pretty similar to their opposition that has a low shots on goal, most likely that team is not going to win, and that is the case again. 3 shots on goal for the 2 that Vancouver has. They had 10 shots that was off target in this one compared to 3 that Vancouver has. 1 shot that was blocked for the 3 that NYCFC had, and possession-wise, 64% possession compared to 36% possession that the Whitecaps had. And again, the Whitecaps, you cannot write this team off. I mean, this has just been an impressive road trip to begin this murderous 7-game road trip. And, the next game, they still have a chance to get points too, because in the next one, I think they play against Toronto, a team that I know in the last game they play well, but it's still a team that seems like they're in CU next season mode. And for NYCFC, they're getting close to that point. I mean, they needed the 3 points in this one. I mean, the last game was great. It kind of saved their season. This is one that they absolutely needed 3 points, considering playing against a very tired Vancouver Whitecaps team, and they don't get it. And now they're still fighting for those playoff position, and especially in the East, a lot of these teams that's below the red line, they know that that team called Miami is creeping up on them, and they know that it will be a matter of time before that team probably would overtake a lot of them and get themselves sneaking into the playoffs. So the margin for making the playoffs is definitely not a lot because of the resurgence we've seen with Miami and, of course, with Messi and his company. But that being said, moving on in the next match is Cincinnati and Orlando City, and this was a statement win for Orlando City. And I gotta say, for Orlando City, it feels like finally things are starting to figure it out. I mean, this season we talked about Oscar Pereira team being very inconsistent, and it feels like they were on verge of having a very similar kind of season to what we saw in 2015 and also in 2017, where they're the off-season champion, and they don't really show anything. The resort doesn't show, but now it's finally started to show, and that finally for the first time this season there is consistency, and there's consistency in terms of winning. And like I said, this is a big statement win by Orlando City, going to TKO Stadium, a stadium that nobody has been able to get all 3 points in the regular season, and they did it in this one. Though early on, Santos did put the ball into the back of net for Cincinnati. The goal was disallowed for offside, but early on you didn't notice that Orlando was going to win this one because Cincinnati was on the front foot. They were looking for the opening goal. The shot though was only one apiece through 20 minutes. Vasquez then hits one right to Galese before Enrique puts it just wide from close range. So just get myself some water here. Doesn't need to stay hydrated doing this review. But in the 35th minute, there was a scramble in the Cincy box, but Orlando could not tap that one in. And I thought Cincinnati had problem in terms of defending corner in this game, which is kind of odd because they've been one of the best team this season in terms of defending set pieces. Though Angulo did put one into the side netting, and I thought Orlando started to take over this game a bit. They started to grow into this game. They were pressing for the opening goal, and they get it right on the stroke of halftime, as in the 44th minute. Well, I wouldn't say right on the stroke of halftime, but close to it, as Facu Torres would score from Enrique to make it 1-0 in favor of Orlando City. So, like I said, Facundo Torres started to get hot, but also there's Romero Enrique, a guy that, that could be an upgrade for them in terms of the attack. And there's an example of how started to feel like some of the new signings from Orlando, it's started to finally uh, blossom the thing that they were really hoping in the beginning of the season. Now, we do head to halftime with Orlando leading 1-0, and in the second half, Galese would deny Acosta from close range before Bupenza would put it wide from close. Cincinnati was definitely pressing for the equalizer, and this is where Orlando started to do what we see them under Oscar Pereira. They decided to kind of go rogue Heath mode a little bit. They decided to sit back and try to bunker and hold on to the 1-0 lead. Now, as much as I've said that that doesn't usually work out well for teams that does that on the road, it seems like it has worked out well for Orlando and for Oscar Pereira team. Like Oscar Pereira is probably the team that is the best in terms of trying to protect a 1-0 lead and trying to put on a low block. Though in the 68th minute, Arias did hits one right to Galese, and then fast forward into the fourth minute of stoppage time. There was no red card that was given to Bopenza after it was deemed his foul was only worthy of a yellow card. But you just kind of had a sense that, with the way that this game was also a very physical game, there was a lot of fouls and a lot of challenge that was made that things were going to boil over. And it did. It boiled over in the fifth minute stoppage time. Right after that happened, we had some pushing and shoving that is going on. And doing that pushing and shoving, Cartiega would get himself a straight red card after he uh, headbutt Arias there. I mean, it wasn't really a strong headbutt, but yeah, when you decide to make a notion of a headbutt like that, yeah, you're gonna get yourself an automatic violent conduct uh call, and that, yeah, Cartagena of course get himself a straight red. So, you would think that the good news is, with the way that that came very late in the game, it wouldn't have mattered, right? Well, no, because this is when Cincinnati really piled on the pressure. Angulo would heads it wide from close range. By the way, I should say which Angulo it is, because there's two Angulo, both for Orlando and FC Cincinnati. This was the FC Cincinnati Angulo player, but Mosquera would then heads it right to Galese before Acosta would put it into the Bailey in the 10th minute stoppage time. Cincinnati was throwing the kitchen sink. Like, they were pressing hard to try to serve a point out of this game, trying to keep their unbeaten streak at home this season alive. But it didn't happen, because in the end, Orlando City become the first team this season to come to Cincinnati and get all 3 points against FC Cincinnati with a 1-0 win. And the shots in this one, 12 shots could be the 10 that Orlando has, 1 shot on goal for the 4 that Cincinnati has, 3 shots off target for the 7 that Cincinnati has, 6 shots that was blocked for the 2 that Cincinnati has. And possession-wise, 57% possession compared to the 43% possession that Orlando has in this game. And don't look now, but Orlando have found themselves all the way up to third place in the Eastern Conference, and they're continuing to climb because of this red hot streak. And what a way for them to start to get hot as we head to the latter part of the season. And for a team that, like I said, for most part of the season, with them being very inconsistent, it looks like even if Orlando is going to make it out of the playoffs, it's a first round exit. They don't look like that team anymore. I mean, they look like a team that is a well drilled machine, a team that they thought that they were going to get with all these signings that they made this off season. And that, again, I think this is also not surprising, consider, when you look at all the signings that Orlando has made, it's gonna take time in terms of for them to gel. And while I think it may have took a little bit longer than I expected, it's better late than never. And with the way that now finally it feels like Osprey has figured things out for this team, watch out. This is an Orlando team. Yeah, this might be a team that you might not want to mess with when it comes to the playoff time that's going to start in just about a month and a half away. But that being said, moving on in the next match is DC and the Chicago Fire. So yeah, this of course was a playoff 6 pointer in the Eastern Conference. I would say that there technically was two playoff 6 pointer, both in the East and the West, and of course I went to one of the playoffs 6 pointer between the San Jose Earthquakes and Minnesota, which I'll talk about that in part 2 of the review. But in this part 1 of the 6 pointer between DC and Chicago, well, it was not close whatsoever, and this is where, I mean, for the Chicago Fire, I hate to say this, but it feels like it's happening again. It's like an annual tradition, and it's something that you might as well just kind of made a meme about this team right now, with the fact that it just feels like right around this part of the season, right as we head to the home stretch, where you thought that the Chicago Fire maybe finally end that narrative, that they don't just completely implode as we hit the month of September, and here we are. 4 game losing streak. They're now slipping down the standings to a point where I think they're now outside the playoff picture because of this 4-0 beatdown that they suffer against DC. And DC wastes no time to get the opening goal. As in the 8th minute, Benteke would score for a click to give DC a 1-0 lead. So Benteke finally scoring for the first time, what seems like to be a while. And that was a finish that you wouldn't have guessed it. He was on a goal drought. I mean, just a great cross and a wonderful finish there from Benteke and Click. Two guys that, they have really struggled in the past couple of games, but what a good combination work there to give DC a 1-0 lead. And then it looked like it was 2-0 when Suke puts it into his own net there, but the flag did came to his rescue and disallowed because there was an offside on DC. That might be the first time I've seen a player score an own goal that actually was disallowed because of an offside by the opposition. Keep in mind, another thing I would say about this game is there was some very weird thing that happened in this game. But I thought it was all DC early in this one. I mean, Chicago, they just looked shambolic at the back. So to no one's surprise, DC eventually got that second goal. As Ted Kutiviacho scoring from Benteke to make it 2-0 in favor of DC. It was just way too easy for this DC team to cut open a non-existent fire defense. Though that being said, in the 38th minute, Kamara did look to get one back, and he was also trying to tie Landon Donovan goal scoring record. Well, actually, second all time list because we know that there is a no new goal king in MLS in Wando just a couple of years ago. But he was trying to tie Landon record, but he was robbed by Bono in the front post. And I'm also starting to think for Kai Kamara the fact that. Is this something similar to what we saw with Joseph Martinez? Remember how Joseph Martinez was really struggling in the beginning of the season for Miami, mainly because he just cannot get over that 100 mark, and it feels like it's starting to get into his head. I wonder is that the same case for Kai Kamara too? Like he is so close to Landon Donovan record. He only need one goal, and he just can't get it because of maybe it started to get over his head a little bit. Though that being said, this was a great save there from Alex Bono, who I think he's gonna probably get the starting job because as I mentioned before, a couple of games when Tyler Miller was being subbed off at halftime, it seems like that was probably the end of Tyler Miller being the starting goalkeeper. That was probably the signal that yeah, Tyler Miller is clearly gonna get benched because of his poor play for this DC team. Though in the 40th minute, things gets even worse for DC as Tiran would score an own goal here. And again, this is where it kind of got weird again because originally it looks like the referee was about to point to the spot there. Tiran he brought down Kuti Pietro in the box, but somehow when he brought him down, he somehow still kicked it into his own net. So yeah, that was a very weird kind of moment. I mean, the fan kind of celebrated, and then they didn't, and then they kind of celebrated a little bit, a little subdued kind of celebration. But nevertheless, it was 3-0 in favor of DC. Jimenez did try to get one back for Chicago, but he puts it just wide on the free kick, and we head to halftime with DC leading 3-0. I mean, again, for a playoff six-pointer like this, you would not expect the fact that it would be so one-sided with how we saw in this one. And in the second half, Kutiviecho almost made it 4-0, but this time the goal was disallowed for offside. I mean, there's been a couple of goals that's been disallowed for offside for DC, and I even wrote, if it wasn't for the flag, Chicago would be 5-0 down in this game. It would have even got worse up to this point. No, in the 77th minute, Jimenez did puts it wide from close range. Chicago did start to show some fight back, which again, that's maybe pride that they're trying to play for, but also at the same time, maybe DC started to put their foot off their gas a little bit, but they kind of didn't because in the first minute of stoppage time, they put the cherry on the top as Benteke. He scored here for Durkin to make it 4-0 in favor of DC, and that would be the final score of this game. My oh my, I did not expect this to be this one-sided for such a crucial game in terms of the playoff race in the Eastern Conference. But the shots in this one, 11 shots compared to 13 that Chicago has. So Chicago actually had more of the shots, but again, most of those did came in the second half because of DC started to put their foot off the gas. But DC still had more shots on goal. In fact, all 4 of their shots on goal went in compared to just 2 that Chicago had. 7 shots off target compared to 3 that DC had. Both teams had 4 shots that was blocked, and possession-wise, 49% possession compared to 51% possession that Chicago has in this game. And like I said, for Chicago, I mean, I really hate to see this because I really hoping that, with all narratives in MLS, it's great to have some narrative, but you kind of wish that some narrative would eventually come to an end. And well, the narrative of the Chicago Fire is the fact, or well, the narrative of MLS and the Chicago Fire, that is the fact that this is around the time they collapse, and it feels like it's happening again with this four-game losing streak. And really, they have never recovered ever since they got eliminated in the Leeds Cup. And if they don't recover soon, this could be another season where it's a very typical Chicago Fire season. It looked like maybe things were going to go well, and then they finish missing out on the playoffs or finishing near the bottom of the Eastern Conference. But for DC, they needed this one because they were also having some issue and kind of slipping in the standings. But with this win, they're back above the red line, at least at this point that we're speaking right now. But that being said, moving on in the next match is Montreal and Columbus. So if you were a neutral and you want to see a very entertaining game and a game that basically no defense is being found, this was the game for you because yeah, no defense was pretty much being found, especially on the Montreal end. Though really in the last 20 minutes of this game, or I wouldn't say the last 20 minutes, but more like the last 30 minutes of this game. I mean, it feels like defense for both teams just they checked out. Like it felt like both of these defense, knowing that this is the third game for 7 days for both of these teams, they don't want to be anymore, and that's kind of where we got the score line like this, and that Columbus, of course, eventually does get the win. They win 4-2 in this one, and really the first shot of the game in the 11 minute did see Brogia puts it wide from close range, but instead the first shot for Columbus, it goes into the back end, and in fact it wasn't actually even a shot for them. It was actually Corbo, the one that scored an own goal. So yeah, actually that's not a shot because an own goal doesn't count as a shot for your team. But yeah, that gives Columbus a 1-0 lead. Very unfortunate there for Montreal, and I think this is also the second consecutive game that Corbo has scored an own goal there. I mean, I don't remember last time we've seen a player that scored back-to-back own goals in back-to-back games. So very unfortunate there from Corbo. Though Cucho did fires it high on the free kick as Columbus was starting to dictate the game, and he has all the possession. And in the 22nd minute, they made it 2-0. It's Cucho. He scored from Ramirez to make it 2-0 in favor of Columbus. Little do we know that Kuka would have a monster night in this one, and shows you why when he's on, he is probably the best number 9 in this league. But that also was a free header too from Cucho Hernandez. And again, if a lot of that thanks to the fact that Montreal, there was no defending whatsoever in their own box. I mean, that guy called Cucho Hernandez, one of the most lethal number 9 in the league. Maybe you might think about marking him and not let him have a free header like that. Like that was just way too easy there for Columbus. But though on the other end, Schulte did rob Jaban of his first career MLS goal from point blank range before Siwas would deny Rossi after another bad giveaway from Montreal. This time, they just kind of gave it straight to him in his own box. And they are very fortunate that Siwas came to him rescue, because that would be another bad goal to concede by this Montreal defense. Siwas then denied Ramirez as he was clean on goal there. I got to feel bad for Jonathan Siwas because he was getting completely hung out to dry by a non-existent defending or defense here from Montreal in this game. And I even wrote defending. It seems like it's not non-existent for Montreal. Like they decide not to show up whatsoever in this one. I mean, after all, they play. This is the third game in 7 days. Maybe they should just take a day off. The problem is, Columbus didn't care because after was denying Gresso from close range, Cucho Hernandez would score again in the 43rd minute. This time he scored from Yoboa there. There was a hint whether or not if this was offside, and it was very close, but I think Cucho just about keep himself onside. But yeah, Columbus, they were 3-0 up in this game. Mind you, this also is kind of the Wilfred Nancy derby. So I had a feeling coming into this game, even though Montreal has been very good this season at home, that Columbus might have a chance in this one, especially for Wilfred Nancy, and the fact that I know Montreal fans still like Wilfred Nancy, but still, I'm pretty sure Wilfred Nancy does not like Montreal in terms of the front office, especially what they kind of did him dirty near the end of the season. I mean, I even mentioned there was even at one point Wilfred Nancy even said that he was thinking about quitting in the middle of the season because of his bad relationship with the Saputo family and the front office. So you can see he definitely he definitely took this game personally and wants to get one back on Montreal in a big way. And it definitely seems like it was the case because his team was 3-0 up at halftime against Montreal. Though that lead did cut to 2 goals in the second half as Opoku would score from Vicine to make it 3-1 in favor of Montreal. I think Rudy Camacho, he forgot that he does not play for Montreal anymore. I mean, I get it. Yes, Rudy Camacho, he's been playing for Montreal for a very long time. I'm pretty sure the fans still love Camacho, even though he's now playing for the opposition. But he doesn't need to try to give them uh, uh, his old team a goal there. I mean, I guess maybe that's just kind of a way to say that he still loves the team in some way. But yeah, that does reduce the deficit into two, and you're thinking maybe Montreal. No. Penalty was then given to Columbus after VAR deemed that Campbell brought down Cucho in the box. So yeah, Cucho, of course, sitting on a hat trick. You know he's taking the penalty, and he does, and he buries that one for a hat trick in this one. I think this is the second hat trick for Cucho in MLS play ever since he come to Columbus. Though it quickly came back to a 2-goal deficit when Vasin would score from Majevic to make it 4-2 in this one. And again, defense non-existent in this one. Like there was no defense that was being found, and this is where I thought, okay, this could be a crooked good score board with the way that defense seems to clearly checked out. In the 70th minute, Vicen did try to do so. He tried to pull one back to set up a grandstand finish, but he missed wide from the corner. Again, the momentum was definitely with the home side. They were looking for that grandstand finish, looking to try to get one back. Schulte would then deny Saliba from close range, and then Lassiter would put a weak shot right to Schulte in the first man of stoppage time. But in the end, Columbus does hold on to win 4-2 in this one, and the shots in this one, 13 shots for the 11 that Columbus had, 5 shots off target for the 4 that Columbus had, 3 shots that was blocked for the 2 that Montreal has, and possession-wise, 54% possession compared to 46% possession that Montreal has in this game. So yeah, again, Columbus, I think this is only the second wins they have this season on the road, but this feels like it's a revenge game for Wilfred Nancy, especially the fact that he was unceremoniously being ousted in his job with Montreal, and he definitely used this game and try to stick it to the owners that yeah, you probably should have not let me go. Like the style that I basically put this Columbus team play. I'm pretty sure you could have had that for Montreal if they decide to keep him for another season or two. But yeah, big victory that is for Columbus, but for Montreal, that's a big loss because again, this is a team that is also battling for playoff position, and that yeah, and especially with the way that they've been not pretty poor on the road this season. They've been relying on their home form to try to get to the playoffs. Losing at home is not gonna help that cause. And I know it's kind of tough to face against a good Columbus team, and especially with Wilfred Nancy trying to take revenge against their team. But yeah, this was not a great performance for Montreal, and that they don't they keep dropping points at home this season. I do think they could miss out on the playoffs, especially with the way that this is a team that just does not do well on the road at all this season. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the last 4 game as part of part number 1 of this review. So moving on, we got New England and Austin FC, and even though Austin is still below the red line after this result, you kind of say that this result might have just saved their season, and in some way, their captain Alex Rain might have saved their season too, because yeah, I mean, it looked like New England was on their way of getting a 2-1 win, and then Alex Rain happened. In the first half, Romney did put it high from the corner before Stuver denied heel from close range. I thought the Reds were on the front foot. Unsurprisingly, they were pressing for the opening goal. The first shot for Austin did see Dreyusi miss a free header from close range, and then Sweat would miss wide from close in the 18th minute. But then in the 27th minute, Rigoni scored. He scored from Gallagher to make it 1-0 in favor of Austin. Again, anytime when Rigoni score, it feels like the hell has kind of frozen over because he hasn't scored a lot of goal this season, and he's been definitely considered one of the biggest busts this season in terms of all the moves that made in the winter transfer window. But that again was kind of a little against the run of play because I thought up to that point the Revs had the better opportunity. Yes, Trey Treyusi did have that free header that that he missed that he wants to have back. But that was really the only good opportunity that Austin had compared to the many opportunity that New England has to get the opening goal. So yeah, for the Revs, they kind of got sucker punched because of that. But how do you respond by getting sucker punch, or at least how do you do well in terms of response by getting sucker punch? Oh, how about just go on the other end and score yourself? And that's exactly what New England did. They go on the other end, and Shankly would score his first career MLS goal for New England to tie the game up at one apiece. And this turns out to be a game to remember for Thomas Shankly making his debut in this one. But yeah, that ties the game up at one apiece. Veroni then had a shot that was blocked in the near post, and then Stewart would deny heel in the 39th minute, and there was no doubt the refs had the momentum. They were looking to now push for the lead again, but they don't do it in the end of the first half as it remains tied up at one apiece. But they do it right in the first couple of minutes of the second half. As 2 minutes in, there he is again, Shankly. He scored from heel to give the Revs a 2-1 lead. Driussi did look to try to respond, but he hits one that was tipped over by Edwards Jr. And then the post would deny Pereira the equalizer for Austin. And to Austin credit, they had responded well. They were looking to try to tie the game up again, though Shankly had other ideas. He was trying to go for a debut hat trick, which I don't remember the last time we ever seen a guy made his debut and he scored a hat trick in his first ever game, but Shankly almost did it there. But he hits one right to Stuver. Driussi then missed wide from close range in the 74th minute. I mean, Driussi, he had an okay game in this one, but I know that he feel like he should have done much better, especially with some of the chances that he was giving in. But really, as the time winds down, you just kind of feel like the Revs were holding on a little bit, and we've seen it this season for the Revs, where there's been times that they've been holding on a little bit, and that they kind of got away with it, and Austin, they would continue to try to pound on the pressure. They're desperate to try to get a result to not continue this free fall that they've been going through ever since the beginning of the Leeds Cup tournament. But in the 4th minute, Edwards would deny Wolf from close range. And then in the 4th minute stoppage time, just as you thought New England did enough, there it is. Alex Rain. He scored from Bruin here to tie the game up at two apiece. And again, I mean, Rome, maybe a season-saving resort for Austin FC. I mean, I know they're still winless since the beginning of the Leeds Cup. But still, you just feel like this resort feels big for Austin, and it feels like the old Austin from last season we saw, where they show some resiliency of coming back to scrap a point that it looked like they were not going to get. And yeah, that's exactly what they did. They get it 2-2 draw on this one, shots in this one, 17 shots for the 10 that Austin has, 5 shots on goal for the 6 that New England has, 5 shots off target for the 6 that New England has, 5 shots that was blocked for the none that Austin has, and possession-wise, 50% for both of these teams. And yeah, again, for Austin, even though I know they're still below the red line, we'll see whether or not if this result can really finally end that winless run. But for New England, very disappointed. I mean, they had this game won, and they conceded a late goal here, and now even though I know the Revs are currently in second place, which again, it's still a miracle, the fact that they're in second place despite all the adversity that has faced. I mean, I won't be surprised they might be start slipping that down the table, because it's great that New England has been able to deal with this adversity, but eventually things maybe start to fall apart, and we'll see whether if that maybe be the case with this Revs team in the upcoming months, or well, not the upcoming months, but the upcoming weeks. With that being said, moving on in the next match is Dallas and Atlanta. So just like this game, this one also ended in a 2-2 draw, though I will say that there were definitely chances for both of these teams to get all 3 points in this one. Though early on in the first half, just 4 minutes in, Arriola would score from Fiera to make it 1-0 in favor of Dallas. So it's been a long time since Paul Arriola has scored for Dallas, and I'm pretty sure he's gonna be happy to be back on the score sheet. But really, he can thank Atlanta for this, because yeah, this was an absolute gift from Dallas. Atlanta just turned the ball over in their own half. I mean, we've said it so many times this season. They have had these kind of boneheaded play. They turn the ball over in their own half, and most of the time that they get punished for it, and they got punished here. So yeah, Atlanta, they were down 1-0. Though Yakimakis did look to get an answer, but he is denied by Maurer. And then Jesus heads it wide from the corner in the 10th minute before Velasco puts it wide from the long range. And Dallas, they were smelling blood. They were pressing to try to get the second goal. And they almost had it if it wasn't for the post, denying Fira in the near post in the 37th minute. Guzan did have to tip Velasco shots over, and you just feel like for Atlanta, they're just holding on to trying to go to halftime 1-0 down because it was just onslaught of pressure that Dallas was putting on Atlanta. So to pretty much everybody's surprise, and I'm pretty sure even to Atlanta United fans' surprise, they equalize in the 43rd minute. It's Giacomakis. He scored from Amada to tie the game up at one apiece. A vintage cross there from Thiago Amada. And then Giacomakis, I mean, this season we've seen it so many times where when he go up with a header there, he's always going to be the one that potentially is going to win it because he always looks like he's the more hungry player to win those aerial duel, and he won this aerial duel and puts it into the back of the net, and really it was just completely against the run of play because again, I'm pretty sure Atlanta fans were coming into halftime happy the fact that they're only down 1-0 considering the fact that they played very poor in the first half. So I'm pretty sure they must be ecstatic the fact that the game was tied up at one apiece. But we do head to the halftime tied the game tied up at one apiece, and in the second half, Guzan would deny Fiera from close range before Maurer denying Yakimakis from close. Mata then puts it just wide from long range as Atlanta. I thought they started the second half the better side. They started to look for the lead, and again, maybe that a lot of that has to do with them getting a surprise equalizer right on the stroke of halftime. And they do get the lead in the 58th minute. It's Saba, a guy that, again, I'm going to only go by his first name because he has an incredibly long last name. But he scored here from Sosa to make it 2-1 in favor of Dallas. Plus, it just sounds nice to say Saba from Sosa of scoring the goal here. But yeah, that give Atlanta a 2-1 lead, but that lead would be short-lived because in the 62nd minute, Kamungo would score from Martinez to tie the game up at two apiece. Bernard Kamungo continued to be a goal scorer, and again, I won't be surprised that if Jesus Ferrer does leave this FC Dallas team in the summer and get his big money move to Europe, Kamungo might be the next in line. I mean, you got to give Dallas a lot of credit. The fact that we talk about their academy being really, really good. Kamungo is definitely another player coming out of that Dallas academy. And again, I feel like he's probably the next in line in terms of being that crucial number 9. I mean, we saw it when Vieira was playing behind Ricardo Pepi, and when Ricardo Pepi was Vieira basically stepped into his shoe, and it feels like now we're seeing it with Bernard Kamungo. Though that being said, there is that definitely a sense that he might not be playing at least in this next game or two because he paid the price for scoring that goal. I mean, he actually collided with Guzan there. Though that being said, I think that was more of a goal that Guzan he want to have this one back. I mean, he hesitated when he came off his lines. When you're a goalkeeper and you come off your line and you hesitate, you're gonna get burned every time. And Guzan definitely got burned there because of hesitating coming off his lines. And yeah, that ties the game up at two apiece. Though Maurer did deny Amada from close range before Maurer did tip Amada shot over, and I thought it was a good response for Atlanta. They were looking to try to get the goal back, but then in the 76th minute, it looked like Dallas gave Atlanta a taste of their own medicine, scoring against the run of play with Farfan putting it into the back of the net. But the goal was disallowed because there was an offside on the development of play. Fiera then puts it high on the free kick in the second minute of stoppage time, and then Ansa missed just wide on the header in the 6th minute of stoppage time. So, despite the fact that both of these teams were trying to get a crucial 3 point in a 2-2 draw between Dallas and Atlanta. And the shots in this one, 16 shots compared to 13 that Atlanta has. 3 shots on goal compared to 6 that Atlanta has. And also, I don't know why I wrote Austin there. Actually, I can fix that right now. It's not that hard to fix. Atlanta from Austin. Instead of saying ATX, I'll just say ATL here. So, yeah, 9 shots off target compared to 4 that Atlanta has. 4 shots that was blocked compared to 3 that Atlanta has. And possession-wise, 41% possession compared to 39% possession, or actually 41% possession compared to 59% possession that Atlanta has in this one. And yeah, I think overall, when you look at how this game play, I think a draw would be fair. I mean, both team again had their moments in this one, but unfortunately, they aren't able to get the crucial 3 points. But that being said, moving on in the next match, is Sporting KC and St. Louis. So this is where we start to get to some of these rivalry games. Sporting KC and St. Louis. Feels like, and as much as I know it feels like it's another forced rivalry by MLS because of geographics. I won't be surprised that this could be a big rivalry in these next coming years too, because of how passionate both fan base is, and especially for St. Louis fans. I mean, it was not a big surprise that they really kind of took over Children Mercy Park. There was a lot of St. Louis fans that make the short trip to Kansas City, and you know that they took over the stadium when you can hear the STL chant. Like the STL chant was very loud in the beginning of the game. Though that being said, in the 11th minute, looked like it was a penalty that was given to Sporting KC after Parker fouled and Dembe in the box. But they did go to VAR to see whether or not if the foul did happen outside the box because it was very close on the line. And in the end, they said that it was outside the box. So no penalty was given. Though on the ensuing free kick, Berkey did deny Tommy on the free kick in the 14th minute before Hebert did miss wide from the corner. But then in the 22nd minute, St. Louis takes the lead. It's Adeniran. He scored from Vasilev to give St. Louis a 1-0 lead, and the away section completely erupted. Like, that was probably one of the loudest I've heard an away section erupt in an MLS game, just to show you how there was a lot of St. Louis fans in the stands for this one, but they were quickly silenced just 9 minutes later because Sporting KC would tie it. It's Polito scoring from Showery to tie the game up at one apiece. And not long after, Polito would score again. This time he scored from Davis to give Sporting KC a 2-1 lead, and this game basically turned on its head because it looked like St. Louis were looking comfortable, but now all of a sudden Sporting KC, I wouldn't say in a blink of an eye, but they definitely turned the game around in a span of 13 minutes, and they do head to halftime with a 2-1 lead. Now in the second half, Melia did deny Stroud as the flag went up, so that wouldn't have counted. But in the 51st minute, Adaniran looked like he scored his second goal, but once again, the goal was disallowed for offside. It was very close, but I think Adaniran was just a hair offside there. But there was no doubt that St. Louis was on the front foot. They were looking to try to get the equalizer, though in the 73rd minute, Berkey did rob Showery from close, but it actually fall right back to Showery and he get a second crack of it. But Berkey said no. He denied him once again there, and then he denied Russo in the 74th minute, and this is where I thought Sporting KC started to have the momentum again. You kind of had a feeling that they were trying to get this third goal because they know St. Louis has the knack of potentially tied the game up once again. And I really think they only had that shot because Berkey was just making being a monster in this one. I mean, there's a reason why he's definitely going to be in contention for goalkeeper of the year this season. Just keeping this team in this game, and again, Sporting KC we're looking to try to kill this game off. Melia then denied Leuven on the curler, and then Joe Klaus would heads it high from close in the 87th minute. And yeah, in the end, Sporting KC they hold on to win 2-1, get their revenge against St. Louis after losing them at City Park in a pretty embarrassing fashion that Sporting KC fans would not want to hear. But the shots in this one, 10 shots or 10 shots compared to 8 that St. Louis had, 6 shots on goal for the 2 that St. Louis had, no shots off target for the 3 that St. Louis had. So Sporting KC very efficient in terms of their shots. Most of their shots are either on goal or it's been blocked, which 4 of them was compared to the 3 that St. Louis had. And possession wise, 58% possession compared to the 42% possession that St. Louis has in this game. And again, for Sporting KC, this is definitely a big win for them considering that they're fighting for those playoff position. And I think throughout these last couple of games, they've been kind of the biggest winner in terms of trying to get above the red line out of those teams that is below the red line. Because while in the Western Conference, it still feels like there's some inconsistency all around in the standings. Sporting KC, they're starting to make a mini run, and don't look now, but they are pretty close to trying to get themselves above the red line, and that's definitely bad news for teams that is currently above the red line. Though I will say that if there maybe is a problem for Sporting KC in terms of their hunt to make the playoffs, they have played a lot of games compared to all their teams that are fighting for those playoff position and play the most game. I think this is like their 27th game of the season, and there are teams around them that is going to get a game in hand or even 2 game in hand over them, and that's kind of will balance fading out. But at least you can say that this Sporting KC team, they're not giving up. They're trying to get themselves into the playoffs. And who knows, when they do get to the playoffs, we know Peter Vermeer's team tends to do some good things when playoff time comes. And yeah, we'll see whether they can do make a run late to try to get into the playoffs. But for St. Louis, again, the road form has been a problem this season, and this is not a big surprise because usually expansion team don't tends to do very well on the road. Though again, with the style that they play, I would assume they would be a much better road team, but that doesn't seem like it's the case with them dropping another road resort in this one. But that being said, moving on into the final game on the sport is Charlotte and Nashville, and this might seem a little bit premature to declare, but I feel like Charlotte is like Columbus last season. There's been just so many games this season. I've seen Charlotte look like they were on their verge of getting the win, and then they concede late goals and drop points. And it happened last game too, and it happened again. And I think this one hurts even more than the last game because it looked like they wrapped this game up. It looked like it was game set and match when Scott Arfield hits that winner. But then we had some MLS after dark kind of thing that happened in this game at Geodis Park. Though early on, the first shot of the game did see Mukhtar puts it wide from a transitional play. Though overall, there was not really much that happened. The shots were only 1-0 up to that point. The first shot for Charlotte did see Shvedetsky hits it wide from the free kick, and then there was a huge shout for a penalty for Nashville, but instead, Mukhtar was booked for simulation. So yeah, obviously, that's something you usually don't see happen often, and it probably should be because I know Pro has made their emphasis in turn the player embellish and dive in the box to trying to win a penalty, and I think that was kind of just egregious enough for the referee to feel like, yeah, that was too obvious, and that Mukhtar has going to the book. But obviously, you knew what the Nashville fans is gonna react like. You knew the Nashville fans as soon as they saw that. They responded in probably the most Nashville way possible this season. They say, "Ref, you suck." They told the ref that he really sucked, and it was pretty loud in terms of how they share their feelings toward the ref. And why not? I mean, I'm pretty sure. I know, even though they didn't see the live play, but they're gonna say it anyway because of sharing their feelings, and especially when you have your captain and your most important player got booked for simulation, that's not gonna make the home fans very happy, yeah, and especially for Nashville fans, that is. Though, besides that moment, not much really happened. Neither of these teams, again, creating many clear-cut chances. I had a feeling both of these teams was trying to play on the transition, and it just didn't quite worked out. Though Surge did hit one right to Kalina in the 43rd minute, and we do head to halftime, unsurprisingly scoreless between both of these teams. In the second half, Mukhtar would hit one straight to Kalina before Kalina had to deny Mukhtar off of a shot that took a deflection. So that was a great save there for Kalina because those deflections can be nasty at times. Mukhtar then had a shot that was deflected by his own teammate Mio, but he missed that one just wide there in the 68th minute before Orinin did hit a weak shot right to Willis as the chances were started to come for both of these teams. Vargas would then puts it wide from close before Miram would hit one right to Willis, and I kind of had a feeling Charlotte would start to press for the winning goal, which again, that's something you don't usually see a road team does. Maybe a road team would be more happy to try to get a point. Not Charlotte. They want the free point so that they can get themselves stay in this playoff race. And again, Nashville, they just look like they were on the rope on the defensive side. There's been a couple of times where they have looked exposed. Bender then had a shot that hits the side netting before Kalina would deny Pico from long range. But then in the third minute of stoppage time, the breakthrough finally happened. It's Scott Arfield. He scored from Melenda to give Charlotte a 1-0 lead. They definitely celebrate wildly there, thinking that they got the 3 points. And why not? I mean, there was only like 5 minutes of stoppage time to this point. Everybody thought that was the winner. I wouldn't even be surprised if there were even some fans in the stands that were already making their exit. But then this is where MLS After Dark took over because in the 6 minute stop time, literally the last kick of the game, a penalty was given to Nashville after Byrne brought down McNaughton in the box. And I gotta say, Nathan Byrne, he has had a good season so far for Nashville, but this is definitely not one of his highlight of this season. I mean, again, just a clumsy challenge there on McNaughton there. And it was a clear penalty for Nashville. So Mukhtar basically steps up to take the penalty. He doesn't miss penalty, even in a pressure cook situation. and he doesn't here. He buries it to tie the game up at one apiece. And yeah, in the end, Nashville, I think they kind of stole a point in this one as they get a 1-1 draw out of this one, really grabbing defeat or grabbing a draw in the jars of a defeat. But the shots in this one, 11 shots for both of these teams, 5 shots on goal for the 2 that Charlotte has, 5 shots off target for the 3 that Nashville has, 3 shots as blocked for the 4 that Charlotte has, and possession-wise, 62% possession compared to 38% possession that Nashville has in this game. And I'm going to reiterate what I said about Charlotte before in the last game. If they do miss the playoffs by 1 or 2 points, or even 3 points, they're going to look back this game as the reason why. And also the last game, too. Maybe most likely this game, too. Because they absolutely should have won this one. Like, when you are able to get a 93rd minute goal in a 5 minute of stoppage time, you should be able to hold on to get a win. I don't care if they're playing at home or on the row, as it is the case in this game. Yeah, that should not happen. And again, these are also kind of the resort that can really deflate a team too. And this is going to be interesting to see how they responds next week too, because I mean that has to be a gut punch feeling. You are on your way of getting massive free points to really improve your playoff chances, only to give away a penalty on the other end, literally the last kick of the game, and drop 2 points that could come back to be very painful for Charlotte to wish that they had if they miss out on the playoffs this season. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at the first 8 games as part of part 1 of this review. Like I said, later tonight I will do part 2 of this review, but most likely that review will be uploaded till tomorrow. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of these games. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.